In 1775, Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet stating that the freedoms of man can only be maintained by limiting the power of government. The pamphlet was called Common Sense. In 2015, it still is Common Sense.
I'm Mark Zaccaria.
And I'm Elizabeth Smith. This is Common Sense. Welcome back. This week we'll join Representative Patricia Morgan as she conducts an in-depth interview with Melody Majkut from M&G Trucking and Transport. Over the course of the hour, they'll get into important details of what the potential tolls could mean to the ocean state. Commentator Jeff Frichard will conclude the festivities with his lighthearted take on business like YouTube. And of course, throughout the show, Mark and I will interject a touch of much-needed sarcasm as we ask and then re-ask our favorite question, are you kidding me? Before all that begins to unfold, we'll begin with analysis of some of the top news stories affecting Rhode Islanders this week. Mark?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Ladies and gentlemen, this week, the sagging U.S. stock market brought an oft-ignored ocean state problem into suddenly sharp focus. Go Local Prov's ace money man, Mike Riley, did the numbers. He estimated that between the market decline and the state's slow reaction to high-priced hedge fund contracts, the Rhode Island Pension Fund has already lost some $750 million worth of principal this year. Sadly, Dr. Riley's prognosis is not positive for this patient. He feels that the combination of a real stock market correction in 2015 and the forecast increases in interest rates, courtesy of the Fed, will further squeeze the fragile hold our state's financial managers have on solvency. Folks, this is not just another boring but important story to put you to sleep. This is your money being misappropriated by government insiders who, at best, are way in over their heads, and at worst, are actually working for someone other than the people of the ocean state. Mike Riley asked the critical question in the conclusion to his Go Local column, do Governor Raimondo and Speaker Mattiello have a plan B? I wonder if they have a plan A. Or are they just ignoring the slow-motion train wreck that's unfolding before all our eyes? Hey, wake up! The city of Providence is technically bankrupt. It's only a matter of time before the city's management bail out and place our capital city in receivership. Madam Governor, Mr. Speaker, what does that mean for regular Rhode Island taxpayers in all 5 counties? Come on, guys. You know who's going to have to bail out Providence, whether they like it or not. What's that going to do to already inadequate state revenues? What if the financial situation becomes even more unstable? Recession is a possibility, even if it's a remote one. What if unrest in the Middle East spills over into Europe, and that makes economic dominoes start to fall all around the globe? Managers of big-time pension funds have to have a plan for such things, and ours don't. Will you demand better performance out of your elected officials? If not right now, then how about next fall? Liz?
What a difference 24 hours can make. On Tuesday, September 3rd, Tim White, investigative reporter for WPRI, said, the highly anticipated release of tens of thousands of pages of sealed documents from the 38 Studios lawsuit will likely happen next week, the Target 12 investigators have learned. Henry Kent Jr., clerk for the Providence County Superior Court, said Tuesday 3 dedicated staffers have processed roughly 18,000 pages from the civil case so far. He said court officials are still working out the best way to publicly release the documents. Unquote. We're all salivating out here in Realville. But not so fast, Rhode Island. In roughly 24 hours, Tim White said, the judge in the 38 Studios lawsuit may allow some of the documents in the 38 Studios lawsuit to remain under seal, despite his recent announcement that all the filings would be made public shortly. What the judge really meant was, we're going to release those documents, not, come on. It's so predictable that the semi-retraction would occur. What facts will they release exactly? The paint color of the walls in office suite number 101? Or maybe whether the paper towels in the employee break room are recycled or not? Well, Mark, I guess it'll be up to you and me and anyone else who cares about their wallet to pay attention. But honestly, I'm tapped out in the attention fund. And that's exactly what Raimondo and Kilmartin are hoping for. Mark?
Thanks, Liz. This week, Ted Nesi reported on a cost overrun that the Raimondo administration inherited from its predecessor. His Channel 12 news story detailed the sad case of the Unified Health Infrastructure Project, or UHIP. It is a software system being designed and developed by Deloitte Touche, which aims to unify both the management and data handling associated with Medicaid, food stamps, and la pièce de résistance, Health Source Rhode Island. The Chafee team jumped at the chance to have the use of Obamacare funds to get this boondoggle started. To do so, they committed the state to a part payment to build the project and then full payment to run it. The original budget to develop the code was $135 million. Surprise, surprise. That's now grown to over $364 million, and we're not even close to done. I haven't reviewed the actual contract, but I have to believe that it's a specification that keeps evolving, even while the code is being written. If I'm right, the 3x increase in dollar estimates to write the code are probably the result of customer-induced change requirements, no doubt coming in a very steady stream. Ted Nesi quoted RI Health Department spokeswoman Sophie O'Connell as saying, quote, "We don't know the total cost of the project until a decision on the new application is made and we know the amount of new funding that's been approved," unquote. Or, as Nancy Pelosi famously intoned, "We'll have to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it." At today's estimate of total cost to produce UHIP, Rhode Island's share of the tab is $77 million that we don't presently have. Oh, and what about our costs to operate the system once it's online? Nobody seems to know anything about that. Are you seeing a pattern here, folks? We are being led by completely inexperienced managers, all of whom have plausible deniability for everything and fat pensions at the end of the assignment to make it all worthwhile. Meanwhile, the only plan, really the only option dysfunctional government has to cover their blind bets on things like UHIP is to just make the taxpayers absorb the loss and move on. I, for one, think that culture and corporate mentality has to change. If you agree, let's get together and make some noise, shall we? Liz?
That sounds like a call to arms, if I ever heard one. Before we run off to man the barricades, though, let's at least finish this week's show. That means it's time to ask the immortal question, are you kidding me? Hi, I'm Liz. Are you kidding me? My mother, Gladys, sent me away to prepare for my future here at Utopia University. Go Corns! I'm a triple major, and I can't wait to get started. I picked English as my first major since I already speak it, so how hard could it be? I'm also majoring in feminine studies and a new major, global art studies, or lives in nature's evolution, aka gasoline for short. My first project in feminine studies is protesting the urinal and how they should be banned. Guys should struggle like the rest of us and just sit already. In Glob art class, we're going to right the wrongs inflicted by hockey. We worship that hockey stick as a sign of global warming and our hero, Michael Mann. We're offended it's being used to whack that round thingy made of petroleum. Save the glaciers, close the rinks. At Utopia University, we learn all about history. Like Jefferson invented the airplane and wrote our school fight song, White Rabbit. The fact that it's a song to stop the slaughter of bunnies is simply to die for. Really? Ma, I'm fine already. Ma, you just left 5 minutes ago. Are you kidding me? Utopia University! Go Corns!
Hi, my name is Brandon Bell, Chairman of the Rhode Island Republican Party. For me, the recent very close special election made me energized, inspired, and optimistic about our future. The Rhode Island Republican Party is united. We teamed up from across the state with a message that we are no longer fragmented. We stood together in an unprecedented effort to get a quality Republican elected to the General Assembly. We engaged in an organized get-out-the-vote effort. We organized a ground game like I've never seen that had us working to get our voters out until the minutes the polls closed. Now that we are together, first, people will understand us better and join us if they fully understand why we believe what we do. Second, people will vote for us if we can define why we do what we do. And lastly, people will respond and want to be a part of what we believe if we define ourselves and not let others define us. What we do simply serves as the proof of what we believe. Spread the message that there is only one option for those who seek balance, responsibility, honesty, and civility in the state of Rhode Island. Step up and join the fight. You can find us on Facebook at Rhode Island Republican Party or email me directly at bbell@rigop.org. Thank you, and God bless.
Welcome to Common Sense Rhode Island. This is a program where we try to make sense out of the policies that affect your life and come up with common sense solutions. And today we're welcoming back Melody Majkut. She's from M&G
Trucking and Transportation Incorporated.
right here in Pawtucket. So she's one of our trucking companies.
I am.
And you do a lot of good things for Rhode Island consumers. You bring a lot of goods.
Sure, we ship a lot of various products here, yeah.
Yep. Last time when we talked about that idea. So, you know, people, I think, lose the idea or lose the connection between what trucks do for their lives and those big things that are on the road.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The fact that you bring almost everything that we buy to our stores.
That's right.
And every kind of store.
Yep. Supermarkets, Benny's, Home Depot, everything that you guys need to go buy for whatever season is brought here on a truck.
Bought here on a truck. It's important that we have a really strong trucking industry, because if you can keep your costs down, it keeps the cost to us in our stores down. So all of the food we buy, medicine, whatever, it keeps those costs lower.
That is correct.
Okay. So we talked about that, but I think a lot of the talk about the tolling proposal has focused on the fact that you don't pay your fair share.
Yeah, that's what everybody says, Patricia, and it's very frustrating for us to hear that, because I don't think anybody really understands the true expenses that we have just to run on the roadways. With the regulations, the taxes, the user fees, they all add up to a very expensive operation.
Yeah, and just the trucks alone are expensive.
Yes, they are. They're actually equal to the cost of a regular single-family home here in Pawtucket. A new vehicle can be about $140,000.
And then when you have to repair it or replace a tire or a gear or something like that.
The repairs are very expensive, and due to the emphasis on safety, maintenance is probably our top priority. We have a huge maintenance facility at the new building that we're going to be expanding to, and maintenance is something that we spend a lot of time and money on, and I believe you will not, as a trucking company, be able to continue to operate in today's day and age without properly maintaining your vehicles. Gone are the days of old ratty trucks traveling down the road. They will not allow a truck to be traveling down the road like that nowadays. They're constantly pulled into inspection sites in every state, and they go through your vehicle with a fine-tooth comb. So we need to be going through the vehicle with a fine-tooth comb prior to it going out on the road. And that's what we do at M&G. We encourage our drivers to do, they have required to do daily inspections. We encourage them to do that, let us know whatever's wrong with the vehicle, and then our mechanics are given pretty much free rein. Whatever needs to be fixed is fixed. And it's also a business decision. It's less expensive to properly maintain your vehicles here than to wait till it gets out on the road and breaks down out in Ohio, where then you're going to pay a lot more for any repair.
So you have full-time mechanics, maintenance staff on your trucks?
Yeah, we have 4 full-time mechanics, and it's a 24-hour operation.
All right, and so you buy a lot of tires
we buy a lot of
carburetor.
tires.
I don't know what's on
various
trucks.
parts, yeah. But each truck has 18 wheels, so we go through a lot of tires.
A lot of tires.
And there's a tax on the tires, as we previously discussed, and that's
I
another
saw
tax that goes to the state of Rhode Island, and we do pay a lot in that tax.
So there's a federal tire tax and also the sales tax, I guess, to the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
What does a big truck tire cost? Is it?
I would say $200 to $400 per tire.
Okay, all righty. So they're expensive, and there's a lot of them per tire.
Yes, per truck.
Per truck. When you go into one of those weigh stations, I think that's what you were alluding to.
Yes.
I always just thought that they were trying to weigh you to see that you were not overweight.
That's only one of the things that they do there. In addition to weighing the vehicle to make sure it's not exceeding the weight requirements, which is 80,000 pounds, they also go through the driver's paperwork to make sure their logbooks are in order, because there are certain restrictions on driving time and rest time. And then they go through all the maintenance of the vehicles. Of course, brakes would be a top priority, but something as simple as a light bulb on the top of the truck or the trailer. The mud flaps have certain requirements to have reflective material on them. Every part of that truck and trailer is completely inspected by trained state police mechanics at those weigh stations. And they won't let you to continue to ride down the road if they find something wrong with that vehicle. We will have to get a mechanic to that site to make the repair before your vehicle can continue on.
Oh, you have to bring them into the weigh station. They won't even let you leave the weigh station.
No, it depends on how serious the infraction might be. But
a light bulb, they'll let you go?
No, you have to have that light bulb fixed before you go, yes.
All right. And then properly loading it, I guess that's one of the things.
Yeah, you mentioned
as well.
the weight. The weight needs to be properly distributed throughout the 53-foot trailer, which is one of the problems I have with this tolling proposal is they're only targeting our trucks, which is the Class 8 vehicles or the 18-wheeler. And there are other trucks that are not having to pay the toll who are actually equal to our weight, and some might argue more destructive to the roads because it's not as spread out across 53 feet. It's more compact on perhaps a 30-foot vehicle.
Like a cement truck.
Exactly. And so those trucks are right now under this plan exempted from the tolls, when a lot of experts would argue they're actually more destructive to the roads because it's more weight in a smaller area. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I did pull out some statistics on safety. And it appears that trucks have become very, very safe over the course of time.
Absolutely, and it probably will only continue to get more and more safe as we continue on. The regulations don't lessen over time, they become more stringent. And I'm a big supporter of the regulations. Examples for the logbook requirements. Every driver has to complete a logbook for every day they're out on a trip. And they have certain rules they have to follow. They can't drive more than 11 hours. They must take a 30-minute break before they hit 8 hours. Their total on-duty time for the day has to be below 14 hours. And then in a week's period of time, they can't exceed 70 hours on duty. Now, these regulations, the drivers all seem to follow and not have a problem with it, but sometimes they might make a mistake or whatever, and when I have to instruct a driver on properly following the rules, I tell them, there are good reasons for you to not be driving more than 11 hours. And you should take a break before you hit 8 hours. We all have families out on the roads, and we all believe in these regulations and think there's good reasons for them.
Well, the statistics are, now the low point was in 2009, it was 1 crash per 100 million vehicle miles. And now it's 1.3, say 1.29 per 100 million. That's a lot of miles driven without very many truck accidents.
That's right. I think the truckers themselves, they want to follow the rules. They want to be safe.
They want to be safe too.
Exactly. And And we are a very safe industry, and not only because we're required to do so, because it's the right thing to do.
Because it's a professional, they have a
That's right.
professional way of looking at it. A lot of trucks have extended cabs, so they actually have a bed in them, right? Too?
Yeah.
Do you have those?
Of course, 20 of our 30 trucks are what you call a sleeper berth, and that is where the driver makes his home.
They're huge.
They're gone for 5 to 7 days, and they make them very comfortable. They have fridges and microwaves and TVs and their video games, and
so they get a chance to relax, get off the road, get freshened up again before they hit the road.
That's right, yeah.
And it makes them really safe.
Yeah, it does.
Great,
Yeah.
good. And we'll be back in just a moment to continue our discussion.
Someone has nabbed Napsis right out of Providence. Are you kidding me? Well, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out what happened to Napsis. The company considered a rock star in the genome mapping world quietly closed its Providence office 2 weeks ago. According to Go Local Prov, the company was able to secure win after win of venture and equity funding. Raimundo's venture fund invested in Napsis, and Governor Raimondo served on the company board. Raimundo's venture fund manages millions for both the state of Rhode Island and the city of Providence. Stephen Beal of Go Local Prov reported in March of this year, Raimundo's former investment firm, Point Judith Capital, was listed as having the highest level of fees among private equity firms in 2013 and 2014, while she was still serving as state treasurer, according to newly disclosed documents. Unquote. Fees collected lined her pockets, perhaps? So where did Napsis go, and where will they pop up? Who knows? This again demonstrates the Rhode Island business model is very flawed when the state government or progressives are involved. Hats off to Napsis for figuring that out without a trace. Are you kidding me?
What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore.
Welcome back. Today we're talking with Melody Majkut of M&G Trucking and Transportation Company in Pawtucket. Obviously the reason that we're talking today is because there's a proposal to start tolling trucks. Actually, I think recently I've heard something about vehicles. So it kind of has morphed away from 18-wheelers to maybe other kinds of vehicles on the road.
Probably because they're not going to get the revenue projections just from the 18-wheelers.
Well, yeah, there's an issue about that we'll talk about later, because the amount of money they said they wanted to take went down because they cut out some vehicles or some trucks.
Yep.
But the scope of the work remains the same.
That's right.
So I don't know quite how they do that, but let's talk. They tried to, my opinion is that they tried to demonize trucks.
Absolutely. We're destroying the roads, therefore we should pay for the roads. That is the argument.
That was the argument. So it was demonizing trucks, and I think one of the reasons that we've been having these conversations is to show folks, or to remind them what trucks do for our lives. It's a good thing that you're there. And you have to be efficient, and you have to be affordable.
Right.
And safe. But let's talk about the affordable part of this.
Okay.
Again, I got some information from the American Trucking Association, and they've gone through and they've pulled out the data for us. And I was amazed at the amount of taxes and fees that trucks pay.
That's right. When people say that trucks don't pay their fair share, I disagree. We're paying our fair share. It's costing us a lot of money to drive on the roadways.
It costs a lot to keep a truck on the road.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it does.
And we talked about the maintenance. We talked about the regulations. Let's talk a little bit about the fees and the taxes. And I want to remind folks that fee is just another name for tax. We like to call them different things: tolls, fees, taxes. They're all just taking money into state government or federal government. And you pay at two levels. You pay at the federal level and you pay at the state level.
That's right.
And then at the local level, you pay property taxes.
That's right.
So you pay a lot.
Yes, we do.
Let's talk about a little bit about the federal level first.
Okay.
And according to this study, the truckers in Rhode Island pay about $28,700,000 a year to the federal government in a range of things. You want to talk to us a little bit about the IFTA?
Sure, yeah. And then there's also the one we pay to the IRS, which this week I just had to write a check for over $15,000, and what's called the 2290 heavy vehicle use tax, which is required to be paid every year. For each vehicle, it's equal to approximately $550 per truck, and we need to pay that before we're given the privilege of re-registering that vehicle for another year. And then that gets us into the registration fees. The average person, I don't know, pays $100 to go register their vehicle. I recently registered a vehicle and it was a little over $100, and I think it was for a 2 or 3 year registration. For our big trucks, it's about $1,200 to $1,500, and it's every year. We don't get multiple year registrations. And then we have to register the trailers also, and that's another registration fee being paid. And it adds up to a lot of money. But you mentioned the IFTA, which stands for the International Fuel
Well,
Tax
let's stop
Agreement.
there a minute. So $1,500 for state registration fees per year. Another $550 to the federal government in order to register.
Yes.
And then your trailer.
And the trailer registration as well. And we haven't even talked about the diesel fuel tax.
And then there's a tire tax too.
There's another tax there.
Okay. So just in those kind of, and then there's this IFTA, which is the fuel taxes.
And it's a big one. That averages, and that what that is we are required to keep track of every mile we drive in every state we pass through. So our drivers have to record odometer readings at every state line. The number of miles we drive throughout each state determines how much money we need to pay that state for the privilege to drive there.
Okay.
If we purchase fuel there, it offsets some of that balance due. And what I pay throughout driving through the entire country, I pay the state of Rhode Island approximately $5,000 to $7,000 each quarter. So that's a quarterly tax due. Rhode Island then takes in the money and divvies it out to the appropriate states that we've driven through. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
And actually, and the purpose of that, I believe, from a little bit of research that I had done, was to maintain the roads and bridges.
I think that goes into the highway fund. I would imagine it does. So you have the diesel and the gasoline taxes. And then we go to the state taxes, a whole nother page. And on the state level, it looks like $53,978,000, so just shy of $54 million that our trucks in the state pay to the state. That's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
And again, it's not just all diesel taxes. I believe our diesel tax right now is about 33 cents per gallon.
Yep.
But you don't get a whole lot of miles out of a gallon.
The average truck, I think, gets between 5 to 7 would be good miles per gallon.
Okay, so a lot of gasoline taxes.
Not like
more
the
than
nice
my car.
economical cars we see with 30 miles per
All
gallon.
right, you're not
Trucks
gonna,
don't get that.
No Prius engines
No.
in those trucks, I guess. And then there's the
So we buy a lot of gas. We buy a lot of fuel.
A lot of gas.
Yep,
a lot of fuel.
a lot of taxes.
A lot of 33 cents.
That's right.
Then you have the truck and trailer registration fees, then other different kinds of fees. It amounts to a lot of money that you give to the state for our roads and bridges.
Yeah, it is.
And now they want to double it.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
It's a scary
I'm very
thought.
worried about this tolling proposal and what it's going to mean to my company. The profit margin in trucking is already very slim. Right now I'm paying about $2,000 per week in tolls. If they enact this tolling proposal, it's going to more than double the amount I'm going to be paying in tolls. And As a business owner, no one can really absorb a hit of an additional increased expense, and it's a scary one to absorb.
This one is scary because it's a lot of money. It is double, basically, what you are paying now. And it's one of your largest expenses.
And it's frustrating because of all of the items we're already paying. So when people say trucks need to pay more because trucks are destroying the roads and the bridges and trucks are causing the damage, therefore the trucks should pay this, I argue we're already paying our fair share.
Okay, and on that, we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back.
It took divine intervention for Moses to get water out of a rock. But now, David Gorman thinks he can get blood out of a stone all by himself. Are you kidding me? Mr. Gorman is the president of Local 3372 of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO. He represents the staff of the Central Coventry Fire District. That district is flat broke, as you may know, because of years of mismanagement that finally got so egregious the taxpayers just said no to the ever higher levies. Now the very generous contracts won by Mr. Gorman's local aren't worth the paper they're printed on, because management squandered all the cash. What's David Gorman's solution? Why, a media blitz to demand that someone else come up with the money to fund his members' paychecks. First, he wants a judge to order the district to pay. Then he wants a judge, any judge, to order the district to impose whatever tax levy is required. Wait, what? The town council. They've got money, so of course Mr. Gorman wants them to pay too. No matter the little issue of a state charter granted to the fire district, which prohibits the municipal government from participating. In an appearance last week on Buddy Cianci's radio show, Gorman seemed ready to seriously consider GoFundMe. It's time for a reality check, not just for Local 3372, but for all managers and staffers of Rhode Island government from the governor's office on down. Newsflash, the laws of physics will be strictly enforced. So too will the laws of economics. In management, one reaps what one sows. Or, to put it another way, I hope you enjoyed those 4 50-foot ladder trucks while you had them in a town with a 35-foot maximum building height ordinance. Folks, the party is over. The longer you ignore that fact, the worse the hangover is going to be. Or, do you actually think manna will once again fall from heaven? Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. Today we're continuing our discussion with Melody Majkut of M&J Trucking Company here in Pawtucket. M&G, excuse me, trucking company here in Pawtucket. And we just kind of talked about safety. And it's clear from the statistics that the safety aspect of trucks is very, very high, has only gotten better over time.
And it will continue to do so.
There have been some allegations, let's call them allegations, made that trucks do most of the damage on our roads. And they have brought up a study, which is the AASHO road test. And AASHO stands for American Association of State Highway Officials. And this was actually a test or a study that was undertaken in 1962. It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago, and a lot of things have changed since then.
You know, we were actually just talking about how did we start the interstate highway system. And it was actually President Eisenhower back in the 50s who came up with the idea that we needed a good highway system. He's a military man. He had been in Europe. He had seen the necessity of being able to move large equipment and large amounts of supplies over the roads quickly and efficiently. And when he came back to the States at that time, we couldn't do it. There were a lot of post roads, and I think Post Road actually was the road that we used to use to go from New England all the way down to Florida. Actually, as a kid, I traveled on Post Road, which gives you some idea how old I am. But it was, you know, a 2-lane highway in many cases. Not really safe, not efficient, not a good way to move goods. and, God forbid, military equipment.
Right. And that was needed.
Yeah, he was elected in 1952, and shortly after that, they got the interstate highway system started. It has been one of the best things that happened to the United States, has had huge economic benefit. But the fact of the matter is, our interstate system was built for trucks.
That's right, and heavy military equipment to be able to mobilize.
Yeah, the original purpose was to make sure that our trucks,
Yeah.
all the heavy things that we need to move, could go, and
Yeah.
could go faster, more efficiently.
So it was built for our trucks.
It was built for you. But it's been used by all of us, and it's really been a
Right.
godsend for the United States. Yeah, we used to travel down south on our annual vacation, and it would take us a long time to get there and a long time to get back, so we were actually on the road a lot and not at our destination too much.
And now when you do it, it's a lot
Zoom.
quicker and easier.
That's right.
One straight road all the way down to Florida.
all the way down,
Yep.
which has been a benefit to cars, but obviously must
Absolutely.
be a huge benefit
of
to
course.
trucks.
A lot easier to get the freight to where it needs to go.
Not using your brakes and the wear and
Smooth
tear on them
sailing,
too.
except for the traffic, because of course there's a big increase in the number of cars in all vehicles that are on the road compared to those days.
Yeah, absolutely. But this study that has been cited was not about how much damage a car does or a truck does or a van
right.
does.
That's right.
It was really about helping engineers understand how to build better roads.
And build them for the weight of the heavy vehicle.
Yeah, to build it for the traffic.
Yep.
So it's a faulty comparison or a faulty use of the study to say that this study came up with trucks do this much damage, cars do that much damage, because that wasn't the point
That's
of
right.
it.
It's a ridiculous comment to say, because it was never the intention of the writer.
And from this study, they actually came up with good ideas or good statistics data for engineers to actually build roads thick enough
That's
to
right.
build those bridges so that they would withstand the traffic. And obviously, the traffic is different on all roads.
But it wasn't just how they were built, it's after that. How will they be maintained? And I think that's where we failed as a state, to follow those recommendations and properly maintain them on a regular basis. And unfortunately, I would say that's probably a bigger reason why we're in a problem here in Rhode Island now than my trucks driving down the road. It's the DOT's failure to have properly maintained them over the last 50 years.
Well, and I think you make a good point. The roads and the bridges were built, were engineered to take the weight.
Right, but it also required that regular maintenance to be in place throughout the years, which, what happened?
Yes. So I came up with the 3 Ps in my reading, and it was properly built, and that's what that study was about.
They're properly building
Right?
them.
They
Yep.
know that if you're on a country road, you need maybe this much asphalt. If you're on an interstate, you need a certain substructure, you need a certain amount of pavement. You're building a bridge, it needs to be this, this big or this strong. Where if you're on a country road, it doesn't need to be as much. And so it gave the engineers the standards that they needed. So
They probably never could have imagined the actual number of vehicles would increase to what it has today that are actually now using the roads. There's no way those engineers could have predicted that the road traffic would have quadrupled or however many times it's increased from back then, when one person in the family had a car. Now
Well-
every person in the family has a car.
that's true, except our roads and bridges are actually overbuilt in most cases. And that's because they knew that it would get more busy.
Okay.
So properly built, properly maintained, you were talking about that. When I go down to Florida, which doesn't have our winter weather, which is why a lot of retirees go down there,
Yep.
I don't almost ever see rust on their bridges.
No.
And yet, I want the people watching us to go under some of our bridges now, our overpasses, and look up. It's rust. Do your trucks cause rust?
They do not.
No. I wonder what causes rust.
I would say part of the weather that we experience here in the Northeast and the salt that we put on the roads, and then that weather and salt never being washed off or removed. It just sits there and builds up and piles up and eats away at the asphalt over time.
Yeah, that's actually has said the deterioration is worsened by winter, salt, sand, all the chemicals that we put out, especially in the winter time here, to keep our drivers safe.
That's right. We're different from down south, yeah.
We're different from down south.
We should have a more vigorous maintenance program going on up here.
But
Maybe after every winter, they should be getting cleaned up.
And our maintenance has been consistently deferred, unfortunately, up here. We're not going out every year and
I don't think I've ever seen a crew cleaning a bridge.
No, actually I haven't either. So the contention of the study is that bridges and roads will deteriorate over time. It just happens, right? I mean, you get old. I deteriorate over time. Everybody does, right? But bridges are the same,
but there are things
they can be extended. The life
Right.
of them can be extended with proper maintenance, and it is something that Rhode Island has done very, very poorly.
In my opinion.
Well, clearly, when we have the worst bridges in New England,
Someone dropped the ball.
somebody hasn't been maintaining. And now we are faced with a huge bill and a huge hit to our economy because they haven't been maintained.
Yeah. And a big inconvenience when they start doing the maintenance.
Oh, yeah, and that too. Park Avenue Bridge was closed. It was a big
Sure, it makes things very difficult.
inconvenience.
Yeah.
It does.
Actually, right on Mineral Spring Ave, they recently put a restriction on a little tiny bridge right outside of my street where I get onto Mineral Spring Ave that my trucks can no longer take a right. They have to take a left, which is heading up Mineral Spring Ave to Smithfield Ave, which is actually a very tight turn then to get to the highway, whereas it's safer to go the original way. But the bridge can no longer supposedly withstand our trucks, so we're now being detoured. Hopefully that'll be fixed soon.
Well, and on that sour note, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
We always try to give our newly elected political leaders the benefit of the doubt when they promise to lead us to a better place. Later, if they show themselves to be in it for the same old power grab, though, the honeymoon is over and we have to ask the question, are you kidding me? This week we had that moment with Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo, ignoring the recently passed revolving door law here in the Ocean State. The governor appointed former state rep Don Lally to her staff. Ordinarily, that would have been a position not covered by the law. In this case, Lally lasted only minutes on the governor's inner council before being loaned to the Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation. There he settled into an $87,000 per year position as a liaison to business. Lally unexpectedly resigned his seat in the House last March. Raimondo, still only partway through her first year in office, was within her rights to appoint him to her personal staff, but not directly to a civil service post. So when he bounced once in her office and then landed in the Department of Business Regulation, she might have been on acceptable legal ground, but politically, the move stunk to the high heavens. So why would even a rookie Paul risk the optics of this kind of shady move? That's easy. This is the land of 38 Stadium. Lally spent enough time in the legislature to qualify for a state pension, but since it would be based on his last 3 years of income as a state employee, he had to do better than the $14,000 he made as a backbencher in the House. My guess is the $87,000 that he'll make in his new position will bring up his total for pension purposes nicely. That's right. When the governor made her appointment, she was playing for the rebound, not for the shot. And you and I will have to pay the tab for that move for as long as the gentleman lives. I predict Don Lally will retire 3 years to the day from starting his new position and promptly move to Florida. In the meantime, Do you think he's qualified for the position he'll hold? Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. Today we have with us Melody Majkut of the M&G Trucking and Transportation Company here in Pawtucket. We've been talking about the costs of having trucks on the road, right? And how expensive it is already. And the fact that this tolling proposal really can do a lot of damage to you as a company, to your employees, and to us as consumers.
I think when any one industry is seen as the answer to a problem of this magnitude, it's going to hurt that one industry.
Yeah, it will. And I mean, we just talked about, right now you're giving about $54 million. They want to add another $60 million to that. So that's going to double some of your registration fees, your taxes, however, whatever they want to call it. They're going to try to think of, I mean, now they're calling it tolls, but they want to get $60 million from your industry.
I'd like to know where the $54 million went.
Maybe $80 million from your industry. And to say that it comes from out-of-state trucks, that's not accurate, because it's only the miles that they actually travel.
That's right.
In Rhode Island.
And those out-of-state trucks, which this plan is hoping to capture to get a lot of the money from, are going to simply bypass the state. They don't need to drive through Rhode Island.
You can go Connecticut 395. A lot of truckers have said we can go right around Rhode Island.
If there's a reason for them to avoid Rhode Island, they will.
They will.
Which will make it harder for the small, limited Rhode Island manufacturing base that we might still have. It's going to make it harder for them to ship their finished product.
And to get their raw materials in.
Exactly. Those out-of-state trucks will be a little less eager to ship for those companies.
Or more expensive.
That's right.
More expensive. So in the final analysis, it's Rhode Islanders, your company, us consumers, our small manufacturing companies that are going to pay this.
Which we all want to support. We need to support the limited Rhode Island manufacturers we have left, and this tolling proposal is only going to make their businesses more difficult as well. So it's going to negatively impact the trucking industry as well as the manufacturers in the state, and yes, in the end, the consumers.
And you can't pass all of these extra costs on. You're going to bear the brunt of a lot of them.
It's going to hurt us.
But you're going to try to pass some of them on, and it seems
to me that's what a business has to do.
That the only ones who are really going to be paying it are the trucks that come in to service Rhode Island companies, consumers.
If they choose to still come here.
If they choose to still come here. Well, let's hope they do, because we need them in our grocery stores and all that. One of the things that I have been working on, and I think you know last spring, I proposed a Republican bridge repair plan. I didn't bring it out during the budget season because it had been so quick. The governor actually proposed a $100 million plan, reduced it to 80, 60 million very quickly. It was a moving target. And we still don't have a plan from her that we can actually study.
Missing many specifics.
Missing a lot of specifics.
For a proper evaluation of the plan.
You know, I mean, I hope they don't think that they can spring this on us in 2 days and actually get approval for it.
I think they do think that.
I think they do think that too. But I've been working over the summer to come up with a plan. I've looked through the budget, and I have found $60 million that is repeatable every year for 10 years.
Great.
Which will give us $600 million of bridge repair. That doesn't include the cost of gantries. That doesn't include doubling the cost with interest to Wall Street banks. And it doesn't take the money, it's out of our current budget. So it doesn't take more money out of everybody's wallets. One thing I know is Rhode Islanders are overtaxed as it is.
That's right.
And now we don't.
And businesses are struggling now to operate in the state of Rhode Island. It's not easy.
Right. And to do a tolling proposal is just adding a hidden tax inside our food, our medicine, our clothes, everything that we buy or that people who serve us need to buy. It's a hidden tax. We don't see it anymore. It's called a toll, but it will hurt our economy, and it will hurt consumers, and it's definitely going to hurt the trucking industry.
Especially if the truckers do avoid the state, and then eventually consumers are asked to pay the toll.
There you go.
If they don't generate the revenue from our industry, they're going to have to get it from somewhere to support the infrastructure and the gantries that are being built.
So I hope that you listeners, you viewers, will let your voices be heard, that you don't want tolls in Rhode Island. They're going to start with 18-wheelers. Who knows where they end up, because they need a lot more money than they're saying. Please call Governor, leadership, your own rep and senator, and tell them no. Thank you for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Common Sense, and this is a segment that we are producing to give you some information on different candidates who are in the presidential sweepstakes for 2016. Well, I have the easy job today of interviewing my colleague, Elizabeth Smith, who is here to talk about her candidate of choice, Senator Ted Cruz. Liz, tell us a little bit about Ted Cruz's background and what it was that attracted you to him as a candidate.
Well, for one thing, Ted Cruz comes from an Italian and Cuban descent. His mother was of Italian heritage and grew up in Delaware, and his father escaped Cuba back in the 50s and came to the United States to escape the oppression that was going on there. He did get into the gas and oil industry, and then eventually became a reverend. And as reverend, I honestly believe, of course, that was very influential in Ted Cruz's growing up, back in those days. He did go on to Harvard, and where he studied law, and then eventually he became the Solicitor General of Texas. And then he was elected, 2012? He was elected to the Senate. So he has he's been up in the Senate. It's not been not for very long, but he's really had a very much an impact on the Senate since he's been up there. So as a matter of fact, he participated in his own filibuster. And also assisted Senator Rand Paul his filibuster against the Patriot Act. One of the major things that really attract me to this candidate is the fact that he defends life, he defends marriage, the First Amendment, of course, as well as the Second Amendment. If you look at his website says courageous conservative, and that's very key, because a lot of the conservatives up there, on Capitol Hill, are beholden to somebody, whether and you think they've lost their mind or something. I don't know, but anyway, he is always steadfast, for the Constitution as written, to preserve our freedoms on every level. So.
Well, we know that Washington is a place where there's enormous pressure for conformity, perhaps nowhere more so than in the Senate of the United States. And certainly Senator Cruz has resisted the easy path of just conforming. One of the things that you're saying is that he not only has strong opinions, but acts on them. And that, of course, goes to his character.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, he has demonstrated that many, many, many times. He thoroughly defends the Bill of Rights, and just recently he was very much opposed and very publicly opposed to the Iran deal. And they had a rally outside of the Capitol, and in a very astute move, he invited and had competitor Ted Cruz out there to gain attention to it, so the media would pay attention.
I think you mean Donald Trump. You brought Donald Trump with him because, of course, where Trump goes, always the cameras go to.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Liz, this has been easier than I thought it would be, and I knew it would be fine. We are going to continue this series with similar discussions about all the other candidates for 2016. Remember, when the time comes, you have to make a choice and get out there and vote. Thank you.
I went to YouTube yesterday to watch our Common Sense show. As you know, we too are part of the YouTube family. While absorbed in the excellence of our program, I started to wonder how this now famous American business got started. Seems back in February of 2005, 3 ex-PayPal guys saw an opportunity and started up YouTube. You can still see the original video. The business caught on with such speed that no less a company than Google snatched it up for a mere $1.6 billion, paid in Google stock, of course. So from 2006 to the present, Google became the parent company and YouTube the subsidiary. As YouTube evolved in complexity and ever more services, the number of new videos put on the site each day is in the thousands. Now, YouTube shows video clips, TV clips, music videos, and other stuff like video blogging, short original videos, and educational videos. And of course, our Common Sense show. All 1 hour of it. So between a Google search for any and all kinds of information, you can go to YouTube and watch just about anything you can think to type in the search box. It's amazing. Coincidentally, the September 11-12 weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal arrived at my house with an insert created by a company called Universum. This be it. Wondering what they did at Universum, I dug in and read everything on the 32 pages. Well, almost everything. The contents of the insert tell the story of what America's soon-to-be college graduates think about the businesses they might like to work for. Now, I wondered if there was anything here our state leaders could take away. Now, the methodology of this survey was very different from the survey the Fortune magazine folks did on the best companies to work for. That one surveyed inside the companies. This new survey came from outside the companies. What the Universum folks did was to survey 81,000 plus undergraduate and MBA folks from a total of 365 universities. Now, that may seem a small sampling in view of the 3,026 four-year schools we have in America, but reasonable. I found the methodology interesting as they had the students pick company names from a list of companies categorized as business, engineering, computer science, natural science, and humanities. Then the top 100 in each category got listed 1 through 100. Now, I looked through all the lists searching for Rhode Island companies. I found 2 out of 500 listings. That would be Raytheon and General Dynamics. But boy, did our friends at Google make out. They were number 1 in the business category, number 2 in engineering, number 1 in computer science, number 11 in natural science, and number 3 in humanities. So everybody wants a job at Google, and possibly then at YouTube. Now, the top 5 preferred industries for these undergraduates in the survey were number 1, healthcare services, number 2, media and advertising, number 3 was educational and scientific institutions, and number 4, non-governmental/nonprofit organizations, and lastly, public sector and governmental agencies. My United States Navy did well on that survey. The Universum folks employed some psychology in their survey, asking the respondents to answer a series of questions that ultimately landed them in one or more of the typical personality traits that you would use to choose a job and company that fits you. You must, of course, understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, or a leader, or a harmonizer. Perhaps you are an idealist, perhaps a hunter, or a careerist. In the last category, internationalist. Now, that means you are globally minded and passionate about building international connections. And your career advice at the magazine is to seek out companies that are global in scope or have multiple operations across the world. And of course, these folks are open-minded, curious, and value cross-cultural interaction. Okay. Now, the pages 15 through 32 are interviews with currently employed folks at their popular companies. How they got where they are and what they liked about their company's way of doing business. Now, I wonder if these companies paid to have one of their own interviewed. Don't know. Maybe the lessons to be learned from this survey thing are just that, lessons to be learned if you are interested in what the millennials joining the workforce today are paying attention to. Now, for all those Rhode Island politicians who claim their objective is to grow business in Rhode Island, get your hands on this insert and learn something. Thank you for watching, and God bless.